Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between two of the community's most fierce DAWI players. On the left-hand side, Sergeant Spaghetti shall be leading the dwarfs up against Humanes and his High Elf Legion. Seems like he has betrayed his dwarvish kind. That is certainly going to be going into the book. So can the dwarfs scratch yet another grudge out of it? We'll have to wait and see. And this is one of those matchups which is generally considered to be very High Elf favoured, but equally a matchup where I think elite DAWI warriors can really shine, and it seems like we have a few of them. We'll get to them in just a second. The front line shall be dwarf warriors with great weapons, dropped all the way along. A little less durability than their shielded brethren, but at the same time a lot more damage output. Can certainly heft these mighty axes and hammers and start cleaving apart chariots and the like. In the secondary battle line, we do have hammers. Looks like 3 units, in fact. Now, hammers have relatively solid mass and amazing armor piercing. It should also be stated that they can be wide lines in combat, a very favourable front line for High Elves, and often you do get to see these guys. So hammers popping in, being able to win that front line and deal with chariots, an absolute must-pick in this matchup. Then we have double Iron Drake Trollhammer torpedoes as well in the central pocket. Again, amazing taking down chariots, which is one of those big problems DAWI can face, but equally good at taking down elite enemy warriors, swordmasters, cavalry characters, all that good stuff. In the back, we have 2 triple gold chevron cannons looking to bring the pain in the long-range game, as well as 2 Slayers to protect them, and the Slayer King himself, Ungrim Iron Fist, one of the coolest looking DAWI characters with his awesome orange mohawk, swinging his axe through with a practiced arm, looking like he's getting ready for vengeance, coming in with just unbreakable, no other of his items, and often that can be the best way to bring him. He is rather cheap in that formation. For the High Elves, they're already deploying some sneaky elvish tactics. 2 line chariots are hiding behind the big rock here. Looks like one did venture a tiny bit too wide, but it's now going to be repositioning to once again take cover behind the rock and allow the rest of the build to advance. And on the flanks, we have 4 units of Rangers. In fact, 5 units. Now, Rangers are one of those units you may be a bit confused to see here. Not amazing AP stats. They are anti-infantry, which is of course good up against the dwarvish folk, but these guys are amazing at destroying slayers, and that's really why you want to bring them. Put them on the flanks, wrap right around the DAWI formation, and just start blending up those slayers, getting rid of them, and that should allow the chariots to carry the day. Front line, of course, is going to be the white lines. The mighty axes, great armor piercing, as well as those lion cloaks means they can close the gap. We do have a very wild Great Eagle pick. Don't get to see Great Eagles terribly often, but I can see the kind of want for this. It's very fast. It can hop down on artillery pieces and generally be a big pain in the butt. And up in the skies, we also have Alariel the Radiant coming in with Earthblood Tempest, just in case there's any of those gyrocopters, Fast Protection, and Star of Avalon. So without further ado, let's get this battle underway, as those eagles do swan and swoop across the sky, and the High Elves shall advance. Cannons can be switching target priority now onto the Rangers. Looks like one cannon still desperately trying to hit those line chariots, and it's getting very close, but not really being able to do much damage or connect with any of those big cannonball shots. Really lovely play here by the High Elves, very sneaky about them. More cannon shots now going to be ripping through those ranges. You can see big damage now starting to come in as first blood is drawn, but the cannons really need to be shooting near eagles and other elite warriors if they're going to want to make their money back, because they're pretty expensive with those triple gold chevrons on both of them, and they have now switched their target priority onto the white lines, which is a really good choice in my opinion. The dwarf formation is starting to reset slightly, just getting ready to take on this right-hand side, which is looking to wrap around where possible, and this could be a bit of a problem. By going more elite, of course, you have less to protect your back line, and he's got 4 units he really wants to protect, the Iron Drakes as well as the cannons. 2 Slayers are going to be very, very busy, particularly if the Rangers can get onto them, where the cannons are doing a great job of really siphoning down at the Elves so far, limiting their numbers. Seems like the dwarfs are rearranging. Hammers are moving to the front line to deal with the more elite warriors of the High Elf formation, whereas the dwarf warriors with great weapons being moved to the flanks, looking to protect themselves up against the Rangers, some of which are maybe coming in for a suicidal charge into the front. Actually, no, it looks like they are going to be whipping around continuously trying to surround the dwarvish forces, which I think is a really good idea. In the back here, Great Eagle and Alariel as well, just waiting for the rest of their forces to catch up. Those great cannons really pin a bit of a pounding on the white lines now. Not too much HP loss, but every model going down will make the job of the dwarvish front line far, far easier. On this flank as well, more Rangers do continue to try to get round the back, but it looks like the dwarf warriors with great weapons are going to be standing stalwart, starting to form up their own shield walls here, or lines of dwarfs with gigantic axes. More Rangers now starting to push in, looking for these little gaps in the Dwarvish line as the White lines do start to hit. And in come the Chariots, getting absolutely obliterated. Fantastic target priority. Cannons don't manage to wipe out one of the Chariots though, which is a little bit of a shame. Their damage output will still be very good. Hammers now getting real aggressive, starting to charge into the White lines and engage in the front line. Big hammers crushing Elvish skulls, doing some lovely work, but sneaky play once more. White lines baiting out this unit of hammers before surrounding the unit, which did overextend a little bit. Really good play, and looks like one of those Chariots is going down to 2 models now. The other Chariot though looking far healthier. Once again it's starting to fall back as Rangers start to apply pressure to the back line. Trauma torpedoes are just annihilating this Great Eagle, and Ungrim has found himself a worthy foe indeed. A big beastie for him to chop up. That Great Eagle is certainly going to be a goner in a matter of seconds. You can see every big slice takes off like 500 health, and that Great Eagle is already running for its life. But Rangers have been able to get on top of the Slayers, the ultimate target there for the High Elves. And in the front line, the Dwarf Warriors of Great Weapons, simply no match for the White Lines. However, wherever the Hammerers are, even the ones that were surrounded, do manage to beat back the White Lines which hunted them down, and now are going to get a surround of their own. The Dwarfs are learning, coming in for a lovely rear charge. The hammers are lifted, and bam, crushing in on the White Lines, who are certainly doomed, getting butchered to the last elf. More cannon shots going in now, aiming at Alarielle, who's getting a lovely little Star of Avalon on her line chariots. One is down to just 1 model, the other one still 3 models. That's a lot of damage output still to come in. White line front line has buckled and is really starting to struggle, although the Hammerers and Dwarf Warriors are getting low themselves. Rangers in the back line are doing a really good job taking down the Dwarf Warriors of Great Weapons. Without their shield, they do lack some more of that defensibility, allowing the Rangers to overwhelm them with sheer aggression. And down here we can see Rangers doing a fantastic job up against Slayers. This is the matchup they want, slicing and dicing the poor naked Slayers. More Slayers though do come to join the party. They're certainly not scared of death. And this is buying a lot of time for those Iron Drakes to continuously pour in fire, although Rangers now starting to sneak through the gaps in the Dwarvish formation. Line Chariots as well, finally getting the courage to really run over into the back line, doing good damage to the Iron Drakes, trying to bounce between the 2 units where possible. But due to the good micromanagement and target priority of the cannons, the Chariots shouldn't be as big of a problem, because one is down to just 1 model. But even so, you can see now that they are in the back line, the absolute havoc they are indeed wreaking. Dwarf Warriors of Great Weapons trying to rally to the Iron Drakes and save them, but it's not looking too good all of a sudden for the Dwarfs in that central fight. In the front line, White Lines eventually slowly dragging down the Hammerers, but not before the Hammerers have certainly had their fill of kills. 64 and 76 apiece by these 2 units in the centre, and it looks like they're going to be able to push back yet another push from the High Elves. This unit, even with fast protection on it, is wavering and starting to go down. More Hammerers going to be starting to fall back to try to deal with these Rangers, who are well and truly into that juicy underbelly now, the soft underbelly of the Dwarvish formation. The cannons being shut down, Iron Drakes as well having to run for their lives as the Slayers are so beat up and simply don't have enough manpower left to help protect, as these Chariots now rove through the Hammers. And despite the fact Hammers have decent mass, now that it's the later stages of the game and they've taken a decent amount of damage, they don't have the models left. They're saturated in with High Elves, and these Chariots are just causing all types of problems, continuously bouncing between combats. You can see they're just going to this triangle at the moment and not stopping anywhere too long. That is really lovely micro so far by the High Elf player. Hammerers have started to surround Ungrim though, help support him and drag down the Rangers, doing a pretty solid job here. Once again, Hammerers don't have the best melee defense. 100 armor is relatively solid, but the Rangers won't do too terribly up against them, and are certainly getting some pretty decent damage in. Slayers down to just 3 and 12 models, meaning that those Chariots are going to be even more of a problem to roll with, and Alaria the Radiant constantly healing them up. Earthbloods going down, as well as those stars, and it seems like 1 cannon crew is already running for the hills. So is 1 Iron Drake Trollhammer torpedoes, and all of a sudden the Dwarfs are looking really quite bad shape. The balance power is heavily against them at the moment. Both Iron Drakes have been dealt with. The cannons are currently off their artillery pieces, and Ungrim stands alone. He has a few elite bodyguard left, but the Dwarf Warriors are starting to break over on this flank. More Hammers as well starting to retreat. Star of Avalon goes down, once again healing up those Chariots, and despite the huge damage they took early on, these guys are really paying for themselves. Alarielle seems to want to hunt down the Iron Drakes, and I certainly do not blame her. Takes a huge barrage on the charge, though. Massive damage output onto her, but her charge is just enough impact to start making these Iron Drakes run for the hills, and with Ranger support, they should be able to chase them off, although the cannon crew desperately trying to run back to save them. It looks like they're a little bit too late. Iron Drakes are being forced off here. The second unit does have a chance of rallying, still 6 troops left, that's a decent amount of damage output on them, but the chariots can simply cycle charge them down, force them off the field, and keep that mobility game strongly in favour of the High Elves. And as you can see, the balanced power really starting to reflect this. One thing though that the Dwarves do have going for them is Ungrim Iron Fist, the greatest slayer to ever live. Perhaps him or Gotrek, I'll leave that up to you guys to debate down below. But he's doing a certainly good job. Up to 36 kills, still relatively full health, trying to chase down the chariots, but they're just bouncing, consistently moving, never stopping in one location too long. And more dwarves try to rally and simply get run over. One of the best units in the entire game up against dwarves, in my opinion. We have a few rangers as well who can be used just to hunt down routing units, like these Iron Drakes who have now completely shattered or been killed to the last man. It looks like that run charge actually killed all 4 models. Look, one guy gets up, retreats, so he can one day do the Slayer Oath and come back for a vengeance. Cannon crews being stopped from getting back on their cannons. Good play here by the High Elves, certainly not leaving anything to chance, despite his good position in the end game here, as Lion Chariots do start to run over these Dwarf Warriors. And Ungrim is doing okay though still. He's with his hammers, there is 28 of them, that's a lot of damage output, a little big hammers to crush down on the Elves. 123 kills, and the White Lines are starting to break. Now, one big problem for single entities like Alarielle and the Chariots is once they have to stay in combat against someone like Ungrim, unless they have chaff support or infantry support at the minimum to kind of absorb some of the damage for them, they can be really fragile and brittle. So this is certainly not over yet, despite how bad it is looking for the dwarves. Cannon crew getting forced off by L'Ariel. Ever watchful, diligent play coming in here by the High Elves, making sure to chase down all these routing units. You can ignore the hammers and Ungrim for now. They can't catch up with your chariots, so simply pop on top of these dwarf warriors, break everything off the board, push that balance of power as far to army losses as possible. Yes, Ungrim won't break, but the rest of his forces will. And of course, if you see your enemy losing, your troops shall be emboldened to do greater feats of heroism and continue to fight to the death. Although saying that, the High Elves as well, not looking too great. A lot of units are being shattered, and the White Lines feel like they've lost the stomach for the fight. We'll fast forward a little bit here, as it looks like there's going to be a little bit of chilling as the Rangers actually are slowly waddling their way over and attacking, and some of the Dwarf Warrior units are coming back. We're going to get some cycle charging down here in the main fight, trying to break off those hammers and force them off the field to leave Ungrim to stand alone. But he won't be too scared of that. He is, of course, the Slayer King, worshipped by so many Slayers, and we'll have to see if he can live up to that reputation as the final confrontation is about to get underway. So we have Chariots, Alarielle versus Ungrim. How shall it go? Hammerers desperately coming back to their lord, and Ungrim turns around and cleaves a big strike in. Alarielle is scrapping as well. All the High Elves, all the dice on the cards here, going for that final assault, surrounding the Slayer King, who's having an absolute whale of a time, although lions are clawing and ripping at his flesh. He's a big boy, or he's taller than these lions, and a pretty decent work as well. You see some of the chariots have gone down, more though coming into the rear. Hold, Slayer King, hold, and keep on fighting. He's got a bloodied axe, and I'm sure it's going to get bloodier yet, as he still has okay health. He's taken a big chunk now, but 1.7k health. And it looks like Alarielle may well be spent here. Down to 240 health, she is starting to break. If Ungrim can get one more good connecting swing, he might be able to cleave her with an uppercut slice. Down goes the Pigeon Queen, leaving the chariots to fight alone. And I think Ungrim, he can smell the victory in the air. His legacy can be risen once more as he coats himself in the blood of Alarielle and Lion alike. More chariots are starting to try to cycle charge and beat down Ungrim. He is very low on health at 1,100, but the Lion chariots are starting to waver here as Ungrim continues to slice and dice. We're wavering 2 leadership, 17 leadership, back down to 2 once more as Ungrim continues his bloody butcher's work. A spinning slice slaps one of those lions in the face and sends them screaming back to Ulthuan. A Pyrrhic victory there for the Dwarfs, an absolutely insanely close game. Ungrim was really back on the ropes, Rocky style, just getting the snot kicked out of him. His forces were breaking and crumbling around him, but the Ungrim, the Slayer King, cares not for the pettiness of elves and comes in with a glorious victory. A few more Slayers shall be joining his ranks after this, as he saw a lot of his men retreat, but very well played to Sergeant Spaghetti, snatching victory somehow from the jaws of defeat. Well played to Humanese as well. Apologies if I am butchering your name, but a very talented dwarf player themselves. One of the best in the game, actually, who did a really good dwarf guide back in the day. So he certainly knows the weaknesses of the dwarves in the form of those chariots. And I really like the ranger pick as well. I think this was a pretty good showcase, actually, from both sides on how you can play this matchup. Those elite dwarf warriors performed amazingly. And the triple gold cannon, a little bit dubious on it at first. I was like, I don't know if they're really going to pay for themselves. But the damage they did onto those chariots was huge. Really lovely work there by both players. And we will get into the damage value and damage dealt in just a second. But if you guys enjoyed, make sure you do indeed leave a big thumbs up on the video, as well as subscribing if you haven't already. Make sure if you have subscribed that you still are, because unfortunately I had a few people mention to me before that YouTube sometimes unsubscribes them from stuff, which is a little bit weird. I don't know if that's happened to more people or if it was just the one guy who did it accidentally or something. Please do leave down below as well comments on anything that was, you really enjoyed in the battle. Who was your MVP? Who was your favourite character? What was your favourite moment? Mine is certainly the fact the white line surrounded the hammerers, got beaten back, and then the hammerers learned from this and then surrounded the white lines. It was really quite funny, and definitely a standout moment for me. Links below in the description as well. If you want to pre-order games, you can do that through my Nexus account. It's no additional charge to you, and it's all approved by CA quite gloriously. There's also links to my Patreon and Discord where you can submit replays and all that good stuff. But anyway, on to the gloriousness of how Ungrim Iron Fist performed. 51 kills, 2,744 damage value. Coming in naked like he did means he's very cheap as well. And of course, the unbreakability was pivotal because despite balance power hating the dwarfs, he still managed to succeed and claim victory, which can sometimes show that the balance of power can indeed be rather wrong. Dwarf Warriors or Weapons didn't perform particularly well. I don't mind them here as a pick. I think the extra AP is certainly going to help take down chariots and cavalry and other such units, but they were really kind of forced into the meat grinders to hold back the rangers to allow the range units to really actually get their value back and succeed. And both those cannons did relatively good. 900 damage value on one, 1,500 on the other. Just taking down those chariots early on, and we saw how much damage 4 chariots could do. Imagine if that was 6. I don't think the dwarfs would have been able to win there. Iron Drakes or Trollhammer torpedoes performed really well. I am a massive advocate for these units and have been for quite some time. 1.3k damage value on one unit, 1.8 on the other. And as for the hammers, 1,000 damage value, 994, 1,386. Those guys and the Iron Drakes are both pretty elite, and this is one of those matchups where I think elite dwarvish forces actually really quite shine, because you're going to be coming up against a lot of mid-tier infantry in the form of the white lines, and hammers enable you to really beat them down. And it's interesting to see how the meta is changing in this matchup. That dwarfs used to go very wide, right? Kind of onion, try and shoot down the enemy, but they eventually got ground down by chariots and white lines. So now more and more dwarvish players that I've been seeing have been going a little bit more elite. Still going a bit wide, but bringing Trollhammer torpedoes, bringing hammers, iron breakers, and all these cool stuff. So now it's kind of the cards are on the table for the High Elves to decide how they want to counter this. And I can certainly see maybe some Swordmasters or Hareth coming into this matchup a little bit more, and then it may even revert the meta back, and the dwarfs like, okay, everyone's bringing Swordmasters, let's go a load of guns and go really wide again. So it's always interesting to see how the meta does indeed develop over time. Both the Slayers performing pretty poorly. They did their job of holding back the enemy, but because of this really weird ranger tactic, which I haven't seen before, but it makes complete sense, really kind of muted their effectiveness. And as for the rangers, if we look across the board, nearly 500 damage value here, 866, 1,125, 1.2k again, 431. On overall, doing rather well. Great Eagle unfortunately just got absolutely butchered, tried to tussle with Ungrim, and Alara the Radiant, not the most damage value, 784, but some really good heals on those chariots to keep them going into the late games, nearly stealing victory because of it. As for the white lines, got 950 damage value here, 661, 632, 438 and 395. So a real mixed bag. You can see which ones were facing Dwarf Warriors and which ones were facing Hammers. As for the chariots, the ones who got annihilated early on, still, despite only having one chariot, managed to get 700 damage value. Very good work there. But the other one, 2.1k. Oh, Such a disgusting unit to take against the dwarfs. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed. Until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.